All right. So, I'm creating this animation for a training library lecture, but I figured I can give you guys a free stream. So, this is going to be a free stream for YouTube. Because as I was doing this lecture for the training library, I've been getting repeated questions, which is one of the questions which never goes away, no matter how many times I I try to get it through to you guys that keeping proportion and form and volume is something for a finishing thing and not to be concentrated on at the very beginning. So you will have seen me doing all these various, thumbnails here. Where are we? So first we plan our shot, then we, have an idea, then we storyboard, then we plan our thumbnails, and then we test them out. We test the thumbnails out to see how they're working. You see, I'm not caring about keeping form and volume, right? Then I take it another step further and I start translating those thumbnails like this, right? I'm not caring about keeping form and volume, right? But anyway, this is a free YouTube stream. It's not because I'm busy working away here. I'm busy making sense of these drawings, which I'm going to be taking further. So I figured, well, why not give something to my YouTube people for free, this is not going to be part of the lecture, so I'm happy to stream this and leave it up for YouTube, where I'm just going to do this frame here. Let me just darken it up for you guys so you can see it. I'm going to do this frame here, and I'm going to tie it down to to what I'm doing at the moment, right? Which is like this. Now, there's a reason I'm drawing it this drawn in. Normally, when you animate, you don't normally draw it this drawn in at this early stage, right? There's a reason. It's for the lecture, and that reason is animation can go as far as you want. So if I was going to be doing like a high-grade video sequel feature, and the animation was going to be done abroad, I would really lock down these poses to a very good level and then slug it in the dope sheet, and then it would be sent to another country, and the animation would be kind of okay because it would be guided by these strong drawings, but it wouldn't be as great as we could get it. But since I'm doing this all myself, it's all going to look awesome, and I can talk you through the various phases and the various stages for various different parts of animation. But anyway, more on that when we come to it. So stay tuned for the main part of the stream, which is you're gonna watch me pull this drawing into place and show you how to keep proportion. Okay, I'm gonna come to the chat and say hello before we begin, but of course, before we do all that, I'm just going to let some of my library members tell you about how great the world's best learning resource in the craft of hand-drawn animation is.
So, AMB is the greatest archive anyone could ever ask for.
Of all the books I've read, of all the other online tutorials I've seen, this was the missing key.
Every video is packed with this information that I would never be able to get anywhere else. So I would say this is the greatest resource for learning animation.
For me, AMB Animation Library is hands down the best animation learning resource that I've seen. I've tried all the tutorials, I've gotten all the books. I've never been able to really grow until I found AMB.
And it's incredible. I've only just begun it, but I definitely am getting more from that than I did from my 1.5 years of college.
I've noticed definitely that my animation has improved a lot, and it's more alive than ever. And what I also like about this animation training is that you also gain real confidence.
Real Animator Training Library is unequivocally the best resource for animation, 2D animation, traditional hand-drawn animation that I've seen.
So I wholeheartedly recommend the AMB Real Animator Training Library to anybody who wants actual knowledge and actual applicable concepts to create their own animation and to move forward in the field of animation and to set your work above those that are just kind of teaching themselves and not learning these tried and true classic concepts.
AMB is motivated by his students' successes and improvements. He's a great teacher, a great animator with over 20 years experience in the industry, so you can't really get much better than that. I strongly recommend him to anybody.
I'm thinking on how to put in words what I feel about it. I love that. It approached me from my dream of becoming an animator. Every cent I paid in there was worth it.
I like that the library is structured. I can go back and watch it anytime I want to. And he's just got so much knowledge. And I just highly recommend it to anyone who's out there looking to learn traditional 2D animation.
So thank you, MB, so much. And thank you so much for all you done for me.
So, are you gonna join the library?
All right. So before we go and talk to you guys in the chat, I see I've got some old faces in there who have come and gone, but I'll answer what he says to me anyway, Mr. Sinha. But before we do that, I just figured since some of you have been following me live doing these lectures, but they never stay up. So you're going to be able to see what the original, just before, as I said, before we do any of this drawing and keeping them form and volume, we do a thumbnail pose test. So I'm going to play the thumbnail pose test for you guys so you can get to see it. Those of you who haven't been seeing what we've been doing in the Pro Archive lectures. So here's what it looks like at the moment in its early stages.
Ben Aziz. I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul?
All right. So now we're pulling that on. We did these drawings here, and now these drawings are becoming like this, right? So they're becoming like this, and I'm adapting my thumbnails through these various stages into this. So what we are going to do is we are going to go and start showing you how to keep form and volume. But before I do that, let's just say good morning to some of you guys. Let's put it on live chat so we don't miss any of your comments. Cameron Allen Davidson Black, how are you? Zentron, Trey, Dylan Draws, Eric Sinha. Did you act this out? Eric Sinha, I acted it out by myself, but I didn't film myself because I'm scrawny and weak in comparison to this character here. I would be more like the Groundhopper, but I wouldn't even film myself on that because I don't visualize like that. I personally visualize it. I act it out and feel the movements of my body and visualize in my mind what it would look like if the tiger does it. So I kind of did it all like this because I don't really, it's all in my head. I'm not one of those kind of animators. Of course, if there's a movement that I don't understand, I will refer to reference, but not for acting like this. I'm not one of those kind of people that needs to use the crutch of watching myself doing it. I can feel my body making the movements and then think about it in my mind of what I imagine. The biggest wimp in the world could imagine himself as Superman in his mind and then live his life that way, and that's the power of your own wonderful human imagination. So for me, I imagine myself as this tiger, and I don't want to look at video footage of myself as not this tiger. So I feel the body movements that I'm making, and then I think about animation law. I think about the 6 laws of movement and the 6 laws of life, about where I can exploit and use those things like slow in, slow out, timing, arcing, primary and secondary action, follow through, overlap and drag, squash and stretch. I think about these things. So these drawings are completely, nice poses, the way that Tiger is sitting, even off screen here, nice poses. Think about him, whereas if I saw myself like that, I could adapt myself to that pose, but it's kind of killed the image in my mind. So personally, I'm not one of those kind of people that needs to sit there. That's another thing about the power of drawing. You see a lot of CG animators filming themselves for posing reference. Many of these people can't draw. So some of them can, but then, Milk Carl always said, live action stats are there for the people who aren't Milk Carl. So I tend to adopt that policy. So looking at those kind of things are for the people that aren't necessarily AMB. So there's nothing wrong with it, but I feel that I don't really need to see that stuff. All right, so then let's have another quick look before we begin at any other questions that we have. Eric Sinha is a college professor, and this is more than we could ever offer to our students. Yeah, well, of course, Eric Sinha is a college professor teaching animation now. And where did he learn animation from? He learned it from the Real Animator Training Library. And he also went to Bluth University, but he has categorically said on stream that he learned more. And I've got that stream in my back catalog on YouTube where you see me talking. I actually commissioned Eric to animate this Real Animator Training Library logo, and he is on the record saying that Real Animator Training Library is the world's best learning resource. He doesn't necessarily use those words, but he says that it is, of all the places he's learned from, and he's learned from Bluth, Real Animator Training Library is best. So he's got to go and be a dad, but nice to have you on stream. And I'm going to say it for old time's sake, Mr. Sinha, nice to have you on stream. Mr. Leon is here. The adorable Kitcha Cat is here. Who else have we got? Max Power. I think that's everybody there now. We have included everybody in our chat. Do you offer feedback for your courses? No, Faraz, because you've got to think about it. You're getting the kind of step-by-step training that CalArts graduates who have paid $180K to learn from, right? People who have learned from Don Bluth, arguably one of the best animators that ever lived. People who have learned from Richard Williams' son in Pearson College. People who have learned from Animation Mentor, Mr. Leon in the chat, who's worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're signed up to my training library, right? And the price of my training library is the price of a gaming laptop. There's people out there with a gaming hobby that, put more money into their gaming than my thing. So something's got to give. If I'm selling it for that cheap, because it is cheap compared to, for what you're getting the world's best instruction. I'm not going to be able to have time to give feedback. Otherwise, then expect the price to be bumped up to, 50 to 80K, per person if you want direct feedback from me. I do have a Facebook group where I try to give at least monthly feedback streams to people who post in the group because I care about my community. I was doing those weekly, but as Real Animator Studios is getting more and more leverage and more production being done, I don't know if you guys know, just a bit of news, I'm talking to the writer of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's wrote movies like Orange the Star Chaser from the 80s. He's wrote Muppet Babies. He's wrote all of the big shows, Super Friends, all of those, you name it. I mean, I'm talking to that guy about a show that we're developing for Real Animator Training Library. He's expressed an interest. I've been talking to him for a month, so we're still liaising if he's going to be involved in a show that I'm writing at the moment and that I've been developing called The Alpha Man, right? Which is something that we're going to crowdfund because I don't think networks with the way things are at the moment are going to be particularly up for the Alpha Man. It's a very old school 80s retrograde inspired show, which is basically like for those of us who grew up on those shows and still want to see those shows without changing them up, you know. I say, okay, do what you want to do to He-Man. I don't care, all right? There's audiences that might want to see that, and good for them. But I'll cater to the audiences that like the stuff that I grew up on, and we'll all make stuff for ourselves, and we'll crowdfund it for ourselves, and we'll make it to the best of our ability, and people who want to see it are going to see it, people who don't want to see it don't want to see it, and everyone's happy. And why don't we just live like that rather than fighting and arguing about what's right and what's wrong? You know, just make stuff. You know, that's the power of creativity. Make what you want to see. Right, anyway, we're rambling on too much. Thank you so much for that, Trey, Mr. Leon. Hello to Queen Blamed Binky. What an awesome name. Right, let's begin now. We've been doing a lot of talking. Let's begin. All right, so here you can see that I'm locking down these drawings, and this isn't even the whole dialogue. This is, so here he says, Ben Aziz, I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Right? So that's where he says, Ben Aziz. So he says, Ben Aziz. Now we're gonna do the drawing, I remember you well. Then we'll talk about the rest of it. All right, so here we go. You've had to wait 16 minutes into the stream, but you know what? Thank you for staying with me. Let me just knock the chat back in the chat window so I can glance at the side of my screen and see it there, just in case anybody asks any questions while I'm drawing, because this is a free stream. Right, so you can see that each time it gets tighter. So here we've got the thumbnails literally, so they hardly relate. They just relate to each other because they were drawn in sequence, right? So there's no consistency at all. It's just relating like that. Now you can see that we're kind of trying to pull it together, but he's still kind of sliding all over the place, and he's still whatever, right? So now if we do that here, this doesn't really match up to this, right? Look at his proportions. They don't really match up. Now we're back onto proportions. So how do we take this and bring it all into proportion to this, right? So that's what we're going to do right starting from now. How long have you been animating for? I basically had a 20-year industry career before I quit it to make my own stuff. Like I said, I really am making my own stuff. As I mentioned, we're developing a show, talking to a very prolific writer. He's the author of the book, How to Write for Animation. I've always recommended that book to Real Animator Training Library members. His name is Jeffrey Scott. But we will see where that goes. But it's really exciting talking to him at the moment. All right, so I'm just gonna dab that back. You can use opacity layer. I like to use, let me turn it into an even fainter color, like a red, so you can watch what I'm doing. So here he's gonna turn, so we've got to think about his head angle turning and all the other things. So I'm gonna turn on my light box, right? And I don't need to change. I can see the next panel if I want, but so I can think about the arc of the foot, but I don't really need to see the next panel. So I'm gonna say no, right? So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to think about what's happening to the body, right? So I've got to kind of figure out that his body is hair, but we're going to have him turning, right? So his center is hair, and we're going to have him turning towards us a little bit. So I got to think about the side contour of the body turning and the clavicle hair like this, right? So I got to think about his body turning towards us. That's the main thing that we gotta get on board here. Now his head is gonna be turning towards us. So remember, I need to have a shape of the guy's head in my mind before I start thinking about his construction. So I need to really understand my character's silhouette. So everything, this is contrary to what all the amateurs that pose as professionals on Twitter and Pinterest tell you, like, you know, about good drawing, about this is how to draw eyes and this is how you construct a face. Like, when you get to Super Saiyan level of animation and drawing, you don't think like that, right? We think outlines, we think shapes, right? Which is contrary to what a lot of people say. You know, I'm thinking about the basic outline shape, because that's what's containing all the proportion, right? Everything sits inside this shape. And that's by managing this shape, you know. Give me a dab, Mr. Leon, the secret science of shape simplification. He's got to do it. He's got to put the dab in the chat. By managing this shape, I'm managing what's happening. So right, so he's got his neck here, which is going to have his trapezius muscle. So I'm thinking about the anatomy that's going on in here, like that, right? So I'm managing the shape. Now it feels like he's getting a little bit thinner, but we're gonna figure this out, right? So also what's happening is I'm now gonna look at the arc here. So I'm gonna bring, rather than bring his knee up this way, if we look what's happening to this foot, it's moving. Let me turn off the onion skin. It's moving this way, right? So we're going to do a little bouncing ball arc and a shift of weight. So we're going to pick up his patella tendon here. Now, I'm thinking of the patella tendon. I'm thinking of this anatomical feature, right? And I'm thinking about the overall outline shape. So I'm now thinking about body mechanics as he's picking that leg up, right? The foot is going to come back on itself. Again, I'm thinking about the outline shape, this triangle, right? Which is going to insert in here because the tibia and the fibula create a triangle insert on the foot there. So again, I'm going to test that movement out to see that arc, right? So the arc is like that. It creates a little weighted turn into his leg that he's shifting and turning. This is extending too much, right? We probably want to bring it down a little bit. I'm putting the light box on just... Okay, so I'm going to see my next panel for these legs, actually, because we need to figure out... There's a little bit of breakdown animation going on here, right? So I'm going to... We say don't use the light box, but for subtle stuff, you need to see the arc, right? So I'm going to arc the foot like this. I'm not going to bring... Notice I'm arcing these movements. I'm not sliding this to this like a shapeshifter or a sliding thing. I'm arcing the movement, and that's how you keep proportion. Because if he's going to extend his leg, then his foot can't slide down. You can think about the foot and make the foot the same size and slide it. But his leg is going to shrink. If he's going to extend this leg a bit, then the foot's got to come out a little bit, right? It's got to come out on itself a little bit here, right? Like that. So we're going to turn it out and bring it in. So now can we see the anatomy in his leg as we're doing that, right? We've got some real kind of like, so as this leg is extending, we're turning the body this way. That's again more animation rules. Let's look at the belt. So the belt will turn just a little bit. Even though we're not seeing this stuff, I'm managing these extreme poses because that's what they are. They're not even keys. They're extreme poses. I'm managing them to get this guy to form. Right, so now I need to think about his hand, right? So he's going to keep his hand on his leg here. So I've got to think about what the hand is doing rather than what the arm is doing, because it's kind of like just, you know, his body is turning, right? Gonna turn off my next frame now. I don't need it. No next panel, right? It's creating too much light box, right? Too much light box actually removes form and volume, doesn't help, right? So we're gonna keep that subtle and we're gonna bring it out, right? Why are we bringing this out, right? Why aren't we just sliding this shape between this shape, right? Or this, well, this, like, why is it coming in and why is, you know, because this is going up, we're elongating the arm. So you got to think about the length of the joint. This would come out as he's turning, right? So we got to really manage it as these outline shapes before we start thinking about the details and keeping the form and volume in the details, right? So here I'm looking at that. Already we're kind of getting some nice shape. Now we've got to bear in mind that the costume will be twisting to the side and turning a little bit. So I'm going to do that because we got to keep space here as this is turning and twisting, right? So we have something like that. Then we've got his other arm, which I'm going to start by, you know, the deltoids are going to be attached to the clavicle, right? So we're going to start with this. So as he brings this up, I'm going to think about what I want to do. This ruff is kind of like, maybe I'm going to bring it. I've got to think about the arc that I talked about. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to kind of keep his hand here, and he's going to bring the skull here, right? I think I'm kind of like done with this drawing now. I don't need it. It's spoiling my mojo, right? So I've got to think about this. So as he says, I remember you well, he's gonna say, Ben Aziz, I remember you well. Naturally, I'm thinking his arm would come down, right? His arm would come down like this. I'm watching the arc of the arm, right? Right? So it's gonna go like this, right? Yeah, that's the arc of the arm. But now how am I going to get his head longer there? I've got to think about what I'm going to open his fingers up a little bit, right? I remember you well, right? So let's bring this hand back, right? Let's bring the skull up like this to anticipate the throw, right? And then he's gonna flick it down like that, right? So this then creates a nice posing shape here like this. I remember you well, right? Just like that, right? Some people would say keep it here because if he's saying I remember you well, it would be nice to have the skull there. But for me, I'm thinking about the overall picture, the flowing movement. You know, we're only going to see this drawing once. As long as I have animation law in here, this nice, you know, although the head is lower, the hand is lower because we're putting the snout of the skull up. We're creating that height in there to then anticipate the throw down, because then you know, as he throws the skull down into his hand, it's gonna make an interesting movement, right? All right, so that's enough of that. Let's get back into the principles of this. So his chest will be hair like this. So now I have to think about his cloak, right? I've got to think about his cloak, right, as he turns his head towards us, right? So this is gonna be, I'm now thinking about this shape, right? I'm thinking about this shape. I'm not trying to draw, I'm not thinking of it as a cloak. Well, I am in the back of my mind, right? But I'm more thinking of it as a big shape, right? These shapes, how they're squashing and stretching, right? Squashing and stretching. Stretching on this side, squashing on this side as he's bunching himself up together like this. So this then is going to turn this way, right? So let's look at the outline shape. Now we're keeping that outline shape and form, you see? Not worrying about all the little details. All the little details are now got to fit inside these outline shapes, right? So we have something like this. So now let's go in here and think about his head and his face. Maybe his head might be a little bit big now, so we can bring it into proportion like this, right? So this is essentially the shape of the guy's head, right? His eye line is going to sit here, two eye widths apart. It's going to keep that there, right? Now I'm going to hit the expression that I want to hit, right? Now his nose is going to come straight and down like this, right? And this is the shape of his nose, right? I can make it a little bit bigger, it doesn't matter, right? And his mouth, right? Although I'm not worrying about mouth shapes and dialogue at the moment, I'm throwing in suggested mouth shapes. So there's going to be a here, right? Which is what I'm throwing in at the moment there. Now his chin, zygomatic, his jaw will sit in there. So again, you see the anatomy of the skull is being thought about, right? This is the center line. This is, you know, up here we come around the zygomatic. We come around the zygomatic. So we make the planes of the head hair to give him structure to his face. So you see how, this is why I keep banging the anatomy button to you guys. Like, yeah, I can draw an outline of my guy's head like you've seen me do. But it all basically, filling it all in, it's going to look dimensional and not flat. And you see this line is going to continue into the ear as a designery thing, right? Because it's going to look dimensional and not flat, because we understand the anatomical planes of the face. So we can start doing that, right? So here we've got the form in here, so we're managing that. Now this is the tricky part, the sleeve, right? So the sleeve, I'm thinking of a shape like this, right? I'm just thinking of a sleeve like a shape like this. And I'm looking at the space between here and the space between there, right? And I'm going to just think of these triangles, right? And there's one triangle there, there's another triangle there, there's another triangle there, and then suddenly we've got a ripped sleeve that's turning like that. You see how easy it all is when you have spent time to think about your design from a shape simplification point of view. Why is this here, right? Because this is the tricep tendon. Here he will have a lateral tricep and a long tricep, and his bicep sits here, but we use that to create his nice fur identity of his arm, to give him these almost glove-like arms, which are the tiger fur, right, of his design. Now here we're thinking of this as a square. We're simply gonna put random knuckles on there that are just gonna work, right? Because anatomy always works. Then we're just gonna put our hand down there. That keeps the form and the volume. You see, no light box. Okay, now why is my stream is my stream working? Yeah, for some reason it seems to be struggling a little bit. I hope you guys are getting a good stream. I'm not getting any red light of warning. Alright, so this is where this goes. So now I can think about the the lines of the cloak, right, which are just going to join each other like that, and bingo, that's solved, right, like that. Bum, bum, bum. Right, let's keep going. I'm going to turn my light box on because I think his cloak is going to come a little bit further out, right, and this one is going to open out. He's going to get a little bit bigger here before it goes smaller, right, into this pose here, right. And let's solve this, right. So here I need to think about the ground plane, right. So this is going to come up, and this is pretty much going to be as is, right. There's not much of a change. We're going to move the triangle a little bit here. Why am I bothering animating this when it's not in the shot? Because for these extreme frames, I want everything to add up. I want everything to add up, because then I'm going to have a really naturalistic piece of animation, right? I'm going to put squash and stretch in the tears here. I'm going to have a naturalistic piece of animation that all works. So when we see him moving in this shot, his anatomy and everything is going to really die up. You know, there's a reason why his leg has come into the shot. It's all accurate weight transition that's going to allow all this to occur. So you don't have to draw all these in when you're in betweening and when you're breaking down. I would personally put them in on the breakdowns and the keys as well, but at the very least we need them on the extremes. So again, here I'm gonna think about this line here, right? It's this line here, right? I'm not worrying about the triangles at the moment. The patella tendon comes down. We have the leg there like that. Here we're straightening this up a little bit. Again, we're thinking about that shape there as we straighten the leg, right? Don't need the light box on, right? I just left it on. Like, let's show you these triangles now. Like, one triangle moves here, another triangle moves here. Just by flipping, we sort it out, okay? The light box, if anything, will hinder that. So that moves here, because we want to think about the arc and watch the shape moving rather than looking at where it previously was and trying to match it, because that way you lose the arc, and in that way it's counterintuitive, but you lose the form and the volume because you're not thinking about the deformation of the garment, right? So here I'm thinking about the deformation of the garment. It would be like this, and then I'm going to flip and watch the deformation of the garment as I continue to do that, right? So now we've got a natural deformation of the garment in those legs as they're almost doing a bicycle move, right? Which is a nice arc. So now we've got the belt here. So if he's turning here, this belt would move just a little bit, right? I'm not putting too much emphasis on that. Again, here we'll think about the stripe. So this triangle here, this straight line here, and this stripe here. We don't want to look on the light box for the stripe. I'm thinking about this shape and what's happening to this shape here, right? And I can be a little bit sparing with the volume on the legs here because they're not necessarily in the shot, but I like to kind of still keep it a little bit to volume, right? So let's talk about the feet, right? Feet are just like hands. We're going to think about the anatomy. The feet have got knuckles as well, so we're going to think about the knuckles, and then we're going to just put little squares on the base of the knuckles like that, and then suddenly we've got a more accurate volume of the foot. You see, I'm not really caring about the other drawing and trying to match it because I understand the structure and the anatomy that goes on. You see, we've got form and volume happening. Okay, no, this isn't going to be in the library. There's so many streams like this in the library, in the edutainment section and whatever. So this is a free gift to the YouTube people who haven't had every stream I've been doing recently has been a library stream. So the people enjoying on YouTube have not really been able to have anything. So that doesn't sit right with me. I've got a lot of people I love here on YouTube who aren't necessarily library members, and I'm grateful to each and every one of you for the support you give me and always tuning into my streams with kind words. So this is my way of saying thank you, just giving you the stuff that people on YouTube want. The people on YouTube don't necessarily want a hardcore animation course, otherwise they would have signed up to it, right? They want to do things and have fun in their own way and just pick up a few tips, and they want form and volume more so than actual really high grade, top grade feature animation skills. So let's give them that. The only thing I won't give them is talking about software, right? I won't really ever do that because it's not relevant. I'm an animator, I'm not a technician. Right, so this is where we... Now again, you see, I'm just watching these shapes, you see? As I start forgetting that I'm live and I'm just burning through it, right? I'm just watching, like, this is the little square here with the triangle. So I'm flipping that and just watching how those shapes move and how each of these shapes move around, right? And I'm being quite rough, but at the same time accurate, right? You can be rough, but I'm being accurate, right? So now again, I'll put a little slant in here. What does that represent? That represents the ulna bone, right? And this represents the radius bone, right? So that's what that represents. So now I've got to think about the knuckles and the hands. Hands are so incredibly easy, right? I'm just going to think about these two sections of the fingers now, right? These two sections of the fingers, right? And then the rest is kind of adding up, right? So then here we have, these two. This one's going in the eye, like that. His thumb would be up here, like that. So we have something like that, right? Then I'm gonna come and worry about the skull later, right? That's something I'm focusing on the tiger at the moment, but the skull drapery of the hat will flop down like that. All right, so that's my initial look at this, right? As he's turned towards us. What I might want to do from an animation point of view, right, is I might feel that I want his head, and this is one of the benefits you can do. I could just redraw it, okay, and it won't take that long because I'm going to tidy it up, but I may as well put it there because I can. I may just want his head there to help the arc. I can see there's not too much of an exaggerated arc. I want to keep the animation subtle. Just gonna put his head there. That feels more like a natural head turn that moves within the framework of that arc now, right? So there. So always go back to the arcs and always overdo it and tone it down because that's the way, right? Now, we are going to draw it again, but this time be a little bit more detailed. Before I do that, have we got any questions? No. Nothing in there. The stream was working before, so we're all quiet and we're all enjoying. That's great. Thank you. Right. Okay. Now I'm gonna start getting in some details here, right? So I'm gonna come again here, and I'm gonna work on the guy's head. Again, I'm working on the outline shape, right? I'm working on the outline shape before I go doing anything else. Now, I do know how to turn his head to front view. You got to have an understanding of it. This is why you play with characters when you want to do high grade animation, and you learn their turnarounds and all that kind of stuff, because it just means you have more power when you want to animate, right? Because I'm playing with the silhouette of this guy. I'm turning from a 3/4 into a front view, but because of the shape of his head is very designery like that, I've solved all those problems, which is why you saw me doing various designs. You've watched on my channel, on my posts, just how these characters have changed over the years, right? So now we're going to draw the ear. So I'm thinking the ear will be something like this, right? Really trying to get those shapes right. Now I'm going to think about his expression, right? So his eyes are closed, right? And he's always got his brows touching his eyelids, touching his eyes. Very occasionally will they come up. So even when we change his expression, it just keeps him in that mean, because he is a villain, but he's got to have a malleable face which is capable of all kinds of emotions. We don't just want him angry all the time, but we want to kind of maintain that look, right? So here he's saying, I remember you well, right? So he's talking to himself like that. You see, now we've got the nose, which is going to be more foreshortened. So I'm going to increase its size intentionally, right? To create more of a foreshortened feel to it as he's coming like that. Now we got to really play with the mouth shape, right? I'm gonna open it more to one side than the other, right? I'm gonna slant that down, right? But then I'm gonna stretch this side more, right? And I'm just gonna keep this more slanted to balance that mouth shape so it's not symmetrical, right? So then his bottom lip is gonna come here to the side. It's a rectangle, right? Then that rectangle is gonna be here like that, and we're gonna stretch that middle line there like this. Right, you can put these lines here to play with that. Maybe have a little bit of his upper teeth to sell the L shape. It's too early for mouth shapes, but I want to hit the L shape. I'm gonna have a little bit of bottom teeth here because of I want to hit the L shape around about these poses. So I'm going to draw that there. It may change, but that's right. Again, hand-drawn mouth shapes are the most powerful mouth shapes there are, because they're limitless. You can do whatever you want with a hand-drawn mouth shape. You don't wait. It's not pre-programmed in a library. Oh, what's the L shape? You can make it exactly what you are. And I'm talking to myself as I'm drawing this. I'm doing his voice in my mind. I remember you well, right? Now here I can see the foremouth is not really, we're losing too much of it. So I'm gonna play with his nose and the foreshortening of his nose, right? So I'm gonna put some squash and stretch in his nose to push that expression just a little bit, and to push the foreshortening we're going to add another line here like that to really play with that, right? We're going to put some mass out here. This is how you keep proportion. You don't think about maintaining size, you distribute mass, right? So we're distributing mass there. The chin, I don't care if the chin is a little bit smaller here. It's all about, you see there, it's all about the particular mouth shape that you're having. So here he's got a bigger chin, just makes him look more appealing there. It's going to constantly be moving, and as long as we're within the framework, it doesn't matter too much, right? That's the beauty of the hand-drawn animation, and that's the secret of why it feels so alive, is the subtle shifts of perspective and whatever, right? So we're gonna have his, now the secret to his jawline is these always finding the stripes, is these stripes are on his jawline, right, like that, and then he's got a triangle with a bottom eye there like that, right? So we have something like this, right? Now I'm going to extend the beard out a little bit, right? So here like that, so you can really see maintaining the proportion on the character's face, right, to a satisfactory level, right? And just to re-emphasize, right, none of this is final, because I'm actually doing, when you animate dialogue to a high level, you don't really care about the mouth shapes until the very end, right? You think about them like the way I'm thinking about them here, but I'm gonna think more about how we get from one pose to another pose while we're talking, and make it interesting for the performance. And then the mouth is just gonna be moving, and you know, his expressions are gonna look really nice when we draw them, but that's more or less what we have, right? So can you see how here it's all starting to come together now? And I have to say that even at this early stage, you know, it's important as an animator to be enthusiastic about your work. I'm very excited about the possibility of how this is going to look. I feel it's going to be absolutely, this character's name is the Great One, and I feel this is going to be a great piece of animation. As I'm doing it, I'm really enthused and inspired to look at the drawings and see the life coming into it. And you know, it can only get better. You know, that's my inspiration to why, you know, people say, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay motivated? Well, the key to staying motivated is, you know, a lot of people say, don't be conceited, don't be arrogant. It's not arrogance. You know, there's a song, I'm not a huge Beatles fan, never was, never will be, but there's you know, they have some good titles to their songs. One of them is Let It Be. The other one is All You Need Is Love, right? So why should you give love to everybody else but not yourself, right? Even if you're afraid of saying it to other people, privately just say to yourself, man, I love my work. I'm so in love with this work. Feel so good about it. And you'll be amazed at just how your work will improve when you actually genuinely start to stop thinking about, oh, you know, when I rough it out, it's good, but now it's going to just go downhill and all this. Just, you know, it's going to get better, you know. I love it. I can't wait to see what happens next when I look at my work. I'm so excited. You know, have that kind of attitude, and I promise you that, you know, and you got to maintain it. You can't just do it in one night and then think, oh, well, my work's still shit. You gotta, like, it's like a child. It's like anything, a relationship. You gotta put a lot of love in it. And that love isn't like secretly resenting the thing that you're loving. Like, imagine having a child, but then secretly resenting that child, but giving it love to its face. What do you think kind of energy is going to really be there in you? Because it is all about you. You're the experiencer, right? So you got to think of your work like that, right? So it's no good sitting there saying, I'm trying, and I'm just crap, and my work is crap, and this and that. Well, then, fine. That's the energy you're giving to your work. So give yourself some of that much needed love, care, and attention, because nobody else is going to do it. They're too busy. They've fallen for the lie that, it's okay to praise others, never praise yourself. That's like arrogant, that's conceited. So sit there, kiss others' ass, put other people's pictures on your wall, put other people's work on, share other people's work and watch all the love, but share your own work. Nobody'll care, because, he's bigging himself up, But what would you rather have? Would you rather have that, being judged like that, or would you rather really genuinely start to see an improvement in your work and feel good about your work? Because that's extremely... A lot of other artists don't tell you about these things. It's like they're sending you in circles. You can have as many tutorials and tips as you like, but I'm telling you categorically that it's not going to make much of a difference unless you start seeing your own efforts differently. We got a guy in the chat. I think he's still there. Yes, he is. Cameron Allen Davidson Black. I have so much admiration and respect for Cameron Allen Davidson Black, because what I see from him is I see a really enthusiastic energy. Not just about what he's doing in my training library, not because he's signed up to my training library, not at all. There's plenty of people that have done that, right? It's the way he's in love with his own ideas and his own characters, and he's constantly he doesn't care about how many people like it or whether it's drawn really well or not. He's excited for where it's gonna go, and I feel that energy when I look at him posting on Instagram and Twitter and wherever he posts. He's somebody that absolutely is giving himself a chance, and he's giving his work a chance by giving it that much needed love, genuine love, acceptance. What do people always want? What do all these people online, these keyboard warriors, always want? We want to be accepted. We want to be... Well, your work's like that as well. You got to accept your work. So while many of you might be tuning in, listening to me, and I've lost some of the audience, and that's okay, because I'm not, I don't care. I really don't, because I'm getting through to the people who I want to get through to. Gonna think, what's he saying? I want to see what he's doing, and I want him to talk about, I put a line here, I put a line there. You're gonna get that from everyone else on YouTube. Maybe not to this level, because I'm one of the best, if not the best, at instructing people in the craft of hand-drawn animation. But you are basically just gonna be sent in circles unless you start feeling differently about your own work, yourself. You're not really going to see the change, which is why have I got this written on here. Feel the change for real. Because that's what going through Real Animator Training Library does to you. It makes you follow certain exercises where you start to feel inside, I can actually do this. And it's a catalyst, because it can only take you so far. It's the feeling that's the secret. It's that really takes you forward to victory. Not just doing emptily, if that's a word, doing the training library exercises, right? That's not really on its own going to do it. You got to feel it. You got to be motivated by it. You got to think to yourself, man, I never thought I could do it, but I can actually do this. I'm great. My work is great. It's fantastic. And then just let it be. you know? Right, so here I'm kind of literally just drawing over and tidying up. That's why I've kind of gone to talk about more important things, right? We talked about the head, but now I'm literally just drawing over and tidying up what I've got, right? And we can really see that that's keeping form and volume and control in there. Careful, in some cases, some women think their partner loves their art more than them. Well, the thing is I love my art more than me because I am my art, Mute Midori. And if I didn't love myself more than anybody else, then I wouldn't be capable of giving that love to anybody else. So that's the way I see it. So if you don't, that's, Mute Midori's hit a very interesting point, because people want to be loved the most. I own you, or this kind of that. But really, until you truly love yourself, you're always going to be manipulated, used, abused, whether it's from something like your work, or feeling bitter and upset, about why you can't draw as well as you like, or why you don't have the body that you like, or this, that, and the other, until you sit down and actually realize, you know what, I'm good enough, I'm worthy enough, everything I'm doing is perfect, right? Absolutely perfect. At that moment of time, it has to be that way, and I'm totally cool with that. Then suddenly, your whole perspective starts to change. You start to really not give a shit about anything other than being, living a fulfilling, rewarding, rich in experience life, and doing things that you really want to do, which is what this is all about, right? This is what it says. I don't care if the Walt Disney Company never drew another hand-drawn thing in their life. If they go completely downhill, if we never see, if all those films are erased from history, I don't care anymore. Why? Because I totally just love my own stuff, right? And as long as I'm able to make what I like, that's all that matters. And once you kind of hit into that stride, the quality of your work really just soars to new heights, because that's they say love is the most powerful force on earth, and I used to be cynical of that when I was growing up. Like when I used to watch Sword in the Stone as a kid, and he would go, well, yes, boy, love is the most, I would say, yeah, whatever, blah, blah. But I've got to eat my words. I've got to eat my words, because it truly is. Because if anything's what's made my work accelerate beyond what I ever even thought was capable, right? I've stopped hero worshipping people as well. I hero worship myself, right? I don't care how that sounds to people. I think after what I've been telling you, some of you will understand what I mean by that. Serena Williams, the tennis player, I love Serena Williams. They asked her, who do you look up to? Who do you look up to? Who do you want to be like? I think she said her grandma or her mom, but then what she said afterwards was just priceless. And she has possibly the best record in the history of the sport of tennis. She said, I look up to myself. And I watched people hating on her and anything like that, but I just said, well, what do her results give her, right? What do her results give her? Ain't nobody got a record like that in tennis. Not even Federer or Djokovic or whoever, right? So it's applicable to everything that you do. It really is. It's applicable to everything that you do. You've got to, nobody's saying you're going to stand there and run everybody down. It's not, this is another thing that they'll try to do to you, to try and take away your power, because you do have a hidden power, and that's loving yourself. It's like they'll say, oh, well, so you're going to run everybody down. Who says so? Who's asking anybody to run anybody down? All you're doing is celebrating your own work. You're celebrating your own efforts, in order for them to grow. You're the sun that is shining the light on the plant that is your work, which desperately needs the nutrition more than anything. It's not a slave. You're not going to beat your work into submission. Oh, just draw every day whether you want to or not. Discipline, discipline, discipline. That's just slavery, right? You're going to do it with love, care, and attention. Love your work, love yourself, and watch the magic happen as you do that, right? I've said it many times. Each and every one of you, when I make this statement, I mean it like you are the most important person in the entire world. Because turn off the lights, turn off your consciousness, you ain't no more, the world is no more, right? Your experience is gone. So why play second fiddle in your own movie? Why be the extra? Be the star. Be the A-lister. Be the best of the best in your own movie. And just soar as high as you can. Shine as bright as you can. Be the light that guides yourself to inspire others. That's what I have to say. All right, enough of that, right? I think, the soapbox is well and truly worn, right? I didn't intend it to go on for that long, but I guess I don't want to just keep talking about drawing over lines that I've already drawn in a slightly tidier way, right? All right, so now let's tackle this. So here I'm just going to deal with these shapes like these. Again, we understand that these parts of the fingers are the two phalanges. This is the third one coming down here. That's going to exist here. We've got a knuckle here. We've got a hand, right? The back of the hand exists here, right? The thumb is going to be here. It's going to be coming behind the skull here like this, which we will not see. His fingers are inside the eyes of the skull. So again, 1, 2, right, that 1, 2, and then the other one is going to come back here where the knuckle is there, and then we won't really see the other one because it'll be in the other eye of the skull. So we have something kind of like that as a guide, right there. So all of that, no light box, nothing, all of that is to form. So now I want to think about the skull. Now we could just place and trace the skull because it is it's an inanimate object, but I want to play with the angle. I want to suddenly maybe see a little bit of the inside of the skull as we come here like this, right? Because here we see the top side of the skull when he throws it down here like this, right? So we're gonna bring it back a bit. I've changed color because I can draw over my hand with a different color, which is what we like to do with you see me using various different color pencils when I animate on paper, right? Or I draw on paper. Well, it's just so I can see in the light of all my rough, right? So here we've got the cheekbone, which is going to be coming under there like that, which goes into the eye like that. So again, here I may want to move that up over the eye where we won't necessarily see that. And we've got 1, 2, 3. So you see, by seeing the underside of the skull, suddenly it just becomes a whole lot more interesting in the action, right? So then we've got this, which is where the hat is. It's a bit of a cheat, but we can pull that cheat off. Then this is going to come over the hand, right? Like this. 1, 2, 3, like that. There, I'll eliminate his thumb, right? So we have something like that, right? Now, as I look, it all made sense. I'm going to keep my light box here. It all made sense, but it feels like the flexing of his wrist is a little too long, so I can just very quickly just adjust it like that. And what it'll do is the angle of the head changing will still anticipate the throw that he's going to throw in there. So we can really see how that's coming together now, like that, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to let me yellow that out. Let me just get my eraser here like this. I'm going to draw in the it can be very hard. Yeah, that's true, Red Fox, because you've been conditioned, right? It can be very hard to do one pull-up for some people, right? Because you haven't done it, you're not used to it, right? But then after maybe a couple of years of doing it, you'll be able to bang out 20, right? So it's all about perspective, right? So I've said to you, and I'm not going to stick on this subject, I've just suggested to you guys that, in my opinion, you're watching me doing this great work, this work that is beyond many people, beyond most people in the world, actually, if I'm honest, that are doing animation. You just watching it unfold before your eyes, and I'm telling you what I think is one of the real ingredients that'll be able to help you get to this level, because you can. There's no reason why not, right? So I say very few people in the world, so it's clearly not me or the work that's exceptional. It's the power of love, a force from above, a skyscraping dove. What is that song by Frankie Goes to Hollywood? Just love your work. And I tell you, that's what I believe is going to take you to infinity and beyond, as Buzz Lightyear would say. Right, anyway, enough of that. As I said, the soapbox is well and truly run dry. Right, so that's the inside. I might put a few lines there to see that. That's looking really, really good. Really, really good. All right. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is, what's the time? 1 hour, 12 minutes. Oh, we've come through it pretty quickly, actually. So, I do have time. One of the things I'm going to do is now tidy up certain things that I feel need tidying up, right? So his face and his cloak are one of them, right? So they definitely need a tidy up, right? They don't really need a tidy up, but since I'm on the stream, I'm going to give them a little bit of a tidy up. So you can watch it, because it's still kind of rough and we're keeping proportions, and maybe his hand down here needs a little bit of a tidy up. That's all. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm going to start tidying this up. Now, because I've been flipping every time I say flipping, I think of British Cockney. Flipping, mate. Because I've been flipping the animation, I don't really need to worry too much. So I'm just gonna give myself some lines here to kind of like say, okay, I'm tidying this up. So I'm kind of showing you how to tie this stuff down, right? Even though I'd never intended to tie this down at this stage, right? But one of the things that made me tie it down off stream was like, I can use it in the lecture to talk about how animation for different projects can be, right? So if I'm doing this as if it were like a full grade Disney DreamWorks animation, multi-million-dollar, the best of the best level, right? I'm doing it to that, but normally those guys wouldn't be drawing this tight early on the extremes, right? But one of the reasons I'm deciding to do that, right, and I could have just left it rough and animated, is in the lecture I'm going to talk about how when I was working in the UK for projects that needed to be sent to Singapore or India or China or the Philippines, that was it. We would do layout drawing, layout character poses, right? Key animation in the form of layout character poses, and then we would depending on what country you live, America they call it the exposure sheet, in England they call it the dope sheet. We would then write notes on the dope sheet, give animation direction. Some people call it slugging, some people call it animation director, some people would call it animation timing director. So we would do all that with these tight drawings, which were not necessarily 100% to model. Now here I feel this needs to come down here. So they were not necessarily 100% to model, right? So they would still need to clean them up and address certain model issues, but they were pretty tight like this, right? So we pretty much knew that whatever we were going to get, we were going to get strong poses. We were going to get strong poses. Now there's a animator on Instagram who was one of the biggest influences in my life, right? Don Bluth's best animator, John Pomeroy. He has got a Instagram account where he shows what he gives for movies like Tom and Jerry or Johnny Quest, or those kind of when they do special movies, right? So he shows you his amazing poses and his amazing drawings, but then he shows you the finished animation, which is kind of looks a bit like, oh, that wasn't as good as it could have been, right? And it's not John's fault. That's because the budget can't afford John to go in there and animate the whole thing, right? So Mr. Pomeroy has to go and just do the best he can with strong poses and envisage it to look amazing, kind of like what I'm doing here. But then he'll send it off and they'll give it, really bland, simple arcs according to really bland, simple timing, without really taking the extremes and exploring the keys and the breakdowns and all those kind of things to take it further, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, well, I'll use this as an opportunity to say, okay, well, if the Groundhopper, because the Groundhopper is a show that this is a planned mini-series that I want to do with this these characters. Now, it was intended to be series, so it realistically probably wouldn't have this super high-grade DreamWorks animation that I'm doing for this particular dialogue test. So what we could do is we could push the quality by having really strong poses for the dialogue, so it'll still look good when it's animated, but it'll look just stiff to the potential and possibilities of where I'm gonna take it. So I figured that it's not gonna really hurt me I don't, to tie this down early on, because then I can kind of share that with my viewers and say, look, well, it can go in so many directions. We're going to take it in the best possible direction, but sometimes when you can't, here's how you maintain quality, right? So now his eyebrows have these markings on them. I've kind of put markings on his face to give him a certain a pattern to his tiger stripes, which maintain the tiger design, but also have some symbolism. Like this represents almost like a third eye, right, on his head, from the Indian traditions. This tiger is an animal that you can find plentiful in India. Well, unfortunately, their tigers are getting endangered now, which upsets me immensely because it's one of my favorite animals. So I'm sad about all animals getting endangered. I love life, I love animals, right? So anyway, so this is the mouth shape that we're going to do for now. So a little bit of a bottom lip around these other lips, the teeth, split 1, 2, 3, just then do things like that to break up the symmetry, make the teeth more interesting, right? So there we have his face buried within all that hair, right? So then the triangle position here. And this is the zygomatic cheekbone where this kind of girl will happen. So I'm being a lot more tidier on this drawing than I have on some of the others, just because I'm doing this to make the stream so you can watch how it kind of happens. But I will stress that I'm not likely to use this mouth shape, because when I time the animation, well, I could, I've played with the potential mouth shape, so it hasn't gone to waste. But when I'm gonna hit this pose, I want to hit it by the ooh, but depending on the time, I'm not gonna limit myself to that, right? Because he's going to make a little nodding gesture to himself here, right? No, I'm not going to delete that because I remembered we want to tidy up this hand a little bit, right? So we're going to go in here. I'm going to tidy up the hand, going to get the knuckles going, right? Again, it's just a triangle, a line, okay? I'm not really thinking of these things. I know they're hands, and I am thinking of them as hands, but I'm also thinking more so of them as shapes, right? It's like it's unconsciously aware that they're hands, but I'm focusing more on the shape, right? And that's what's giving me that. All right. So there we have this drawing that we have done. Now I can eliminate that line there. Now one thing that I'm going to do to unify it all, you'll notice that I like to go around the silhouette, right? Because that really helps me keep everything going. So I'm gonna go here, and this is a good way to practice your line drawing skills, right? So I'm gonna take a slightly fatter brush here, and I am going to just heavy the silhouette, right? And you want to improve your line skills, just do this, right? Just take every opportunity. Like, so I'm literally tracing the line, but I'm trying to make the line weighted and nice, right? If I don't get it exact, that's okay, right? I'm just gonna come in here. We want to consolidate the silhouette of this guy. All right, this here, come down here like that, right? So we want to, the more and more you do it, the more accurately you'll get, right? There we go. So that way you also get better, and you get into the habit of thinking about the quality of the line, right? Because as animators we can often be very wispy or very, very scribbly and very, very sketchy, and the nuances of paper are not necessarily in software where I could just change my grip and from the side of my pencil. I don't want to have to fiddle around with brushes or things like that. So for me, I like to just build the line. It's so much faster on paper, personally, with my side of the pencil and then that, but we can't do that here. You've all seen me work on paper now. Alright, so here we have consolidated that outline shape, and everything is keeping proportion, you see? Everything. What I am going to do here is just do only for the head, right? Just keep proportion and heavy the line around the head, right? So this is also a great way to familiarize yourself with a character, particularly if you've designed the character, or you know, you want to learn somebody else's character, right? And there we go, right? So we have that. All right. Good night, Renata. So we have we've brought that drawing into proportion now. So all of those thumbs, all of that section of the thumbs, which we did on the stream, are now to this level, right? But remember, we have all of this stuff to do next, right? So before I go, and you know, if you have any questions, have them for me, because I'm gonna play you the rough thumbnail thing so you can imagine what this is gonna start looking like, right? Some of you have already seen it, but then just so you can imagine why I'm so excited.
Ben Aziz. I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul?
So we see that it's going to start looking like this. And to those of you who haven't been watching the live stream, if we look at the art direction, let's bring this in. It's going to be looking like this, right? Which is just a rough, okay, so we've been painting up the background and the mood boards of the layout drawing of what it's all going to look like, right? So we can see, you know, it's going to look better than this, because this particular drawing of him, as I said, was a layout drawing. It's weak. We have much stronger drawings of him now, you see, you know. So this was the drawing there, and then but then we look at it here, it's different, you know. The eyes are different, the proportions are nicer. He hasn't got this weird, you know, hunch in his back, right? So it's just, you know, everything's going to be infinitely better. And we can really already see the arcs and the animation happening as we look at it. He literally, as he's saying that, all that's happening is he's taking a skull and throwing it in the other hand, right? And he's going to be shaking his head and doing all kinds of things, but he's just saying, so he says, Ben Aziz, I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. And then he has a little pause to himself, right? So but in all of that dialogue, all he's doing is throwing a skull from one hand to the other while shaking his head a little bit, right? And talking. So it's very, very simple in that regard. It's doing subtle animation is very, very difficult because we got to keep it simple, but we got to keep it complicated at the same time, right? With all the little nuances, right? So I'm going to pop out the chat and I'm going to bring you guys in before I go. Let's put it on live chat. Can you do once again a super quick pose of the great one with just guidelines like you did yesterday? Okay. I have many job vacancies, 2D timer, and I would never apply. Okay, right, so let's do that. Octavio Velasquez, meet another success story from Real Animator Training. Octavio won't mind me using him as a poster boy for my training library. Octavio Velasquez joined my Real Animator Training library, developed a love for himself and his own work, and guess what he's doing now? He's been hired to do anime by Anime Studios, by professional anime studios. So he's a success story that I'm very proud of. Okay, let's talk about the great one with his construction lines super quick. All right, Mr. Leon, another great poster boy for Real Animator Training. He worked on Ninja Turtles. Okay, so this is for Mr. Leon. Right, let's do the great one running forward in great anger, right? With his arm on the floor and his fist reared back, as if like, you long-eared parasite, get out of my home. How dare you come to the great one's abode, right? So I'm thinking of this guy like as a mountainous beast of a tiger, right? So this would be here like this. Maybe we change this angle here, right? So the most important thing to get before I do any construction lines, Mr. Leon, is to remember that this guy is mountain, right? What does he represent? He represents rock, mountain, right? So I'm really trying my hardest at the moment to get this aspect out of him, right? This is first and foremost what we want to do with the character, right? So I want the shape, right? Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to have the shape of his head, right? I'm going to have my proposed mouth shape. Alright. Again, I'm going to get his jaw in there like that. So, his neck is trapezius coming back around here, his sternocleido, his other part of his neck, his deltoids, right, the anatomy, his chest, right, his lats. So here his pelvis would be, his patella tendon would be here, his foot would be in here like this, right? And here his other knee would be. I can hear my daughter working hard at her piano. That's what I like to hear, people doing hard work. Maybe you're not picking that up on the mic, but I am. So here we have this. Now we have the deltoid back here. The bicep would be under here. So this would be his fist shape, right? So then the colloque, we could maybe have hair like this. Now coming under here would be the bicep, right? With his lateral tricep hair, tricep tendon coming in here, right? I'm gonna put that like this. His hands like that, right? So that is effectively a super quick image of him, and I'm not going to draw it in because you wanted a super quick image of him, but I will very quickly just, let's get a black so we don't waste time, right? So we're gonna put our first kind of like idea. His face isn't as intense as I would like it to be, so that would need to be reworked, but I'm kind of leaving it as is, right? So then here's where the identity of the character starts to come into play, right? So he starts to come into a world of his own here, right? So when you really know and understand a character, this is why understanding your design is just super important, right? So then here we got the mountainous cloak, which is going to be like this around him, like that. Then here we have his garments, right? There was an episode of the old 70s TV show Kung Fu Garments of Rage. That's what the great one is, full of rage and hatred, right? So we have that. He actually would have a tail, but I would need to think about that because that would kill the pose. So here, I did say I wasn't going to draw it in, but this is hopefully super quick, right? So then here he's got a bit of the sleeve, right? Curling over around here like this. Around there like that. His pants again. Gonna curl over again the design of his feet. So again the knuckles. Midori, get the knuckles of the feet. I know that she struggles with feet. Get the knuckles of the feet down and your problem is kind of solved. Right, so then we have this here, 1, 2, 3, like that. Alright, and with the stretch of the thumb, I'll give him that. And we're gonna have the other foot coming back. We can cheat it out like that. I don't want to put it there, it'll ruin the silhouette. We could, if we want, have it there, right? So then here we have the bicep, right? Actually, That's wrong. That would come like that. Yeah. I don't know why I'm flipping. Right. Flip your neck, mate. Right there, it's like this. Take Octavio's question in a minute. Right. This stream is purely for my YouTube people, so I don't mind spending a bit of time taking your questions, right? Dale, we put in perspective like that, right? We don't want it coming over the silhouette too much, right? So we keep it contained. Put it back on itself. All right, so Mr. Leon, that is that, right? So hopefully that was super quick enough for you. Said for effect, because I know it was. All right. What does Octavio have to say? AMB, hi, I have a question. I've done a decent job at the studio in terms of animation, but my drawing keeps getting corrected by the art director. I noticed that my drawing is flat, especially with drapery on top of it. I know the style can be flat, but what kind of... Okay, anime's faces are flat, but never their drapery, okay? That's the thing about anime, right? I really respect anime drawing. They really know how to draw. It's just a designer thing. So, like, anime will give you, like, these super flat, you know, faces, right? And then they'll hide that flatness with, you know, they'll balance it with a nice bit of hair, right? And they'll also balance that nice bit of hair, right, with the drapery, right? So again, what you want to do is let's say that we have this character here, right? So again, anime will be very loose, and they will focus on the base. You know, Octavio, this is why I talk about anatomy. So they'll focus on the anatomy of the character like this, right? As very, very simple things. But then you'll start to think about contouring of the body and the circular jacket, right? So you're keeping it simple, but then they will start to then play with all these like colors and things coming like round back on itself, right? Which is kind of like this. And then you'll start to add things on there that really then, you know, with little zippers here like this, right? And then they'll start to add real drapery, right? So here you'll have the folds, right? So we need to think about the angle. So let's say that this guy's got his sleeves rolled up. So you'll start, you know, you'll then start to create triangular square things, which then you'd start adding all these kind of bunches and things on there, which then suddenly take the drawing to a whole new level. Then you'll have hair with all these like lines, right? All these, and then maybe the jacket will have another bit on there. I'm kind of reusing one of my own kind of character jackets to illustrate this. There'll be another bit of drapery in here. There might be a bit of like drapery on the t-shirt like this, coming where he's tucked his pants in. The belt will come off and out. There'll be bits on the pants, all going to the three-dimensional, like, so then here you'll have all these kind of lines here like that, you know, which will kind of enable that. So let's change the position here, right? So the arm will be flat, but then you'll have all the room here to bunch up the drapery. So you've really got to start, you know, then the gloves, you know, these kind of cylinder gloves which are round, and then, you know, with fist kind of proportions, and then, you know, so again, we start simple, but then we put little kind of drapes and folds and creases around those shapes, then change them up, right, to kind of like give it that feel, right, which suddenly makes it feel and this is what I tried to tell you, Octavio, is like this is why I always talk about drawing from life and understanding the secret science of shape simplification. Maybe he'll have a pattern on his pants with a few lines there which are indicating that a pocket, right? So all these, maybe he'll have a, you know, a side pocket here. So this is the illusion of what makes it seem dimensional over a very, very flat face, right? So let's make him look a little bit more manly. I wasn't sure whether I was drawing a man or a woman when I started, right? So let's turn him into something. Let's give him a tuft of 80s hair. He still looks a little bit more, he can be a gender neutral whatever, I don't know. So why does he have to be a man? Okay, there we go. He can be anything, right? I don't know. We just drew it for whatever, right? So there's the suggestion of anime drawing, keeping it simple. It's all based on simple shapes. You know, one of the things is all right, breasts, right? We're just gonna do this, right? Which is just 2 lumps hair like this. It's flat, right? And we're gonna put a head like this, right? With the eyes or whatever, right? So why does this drawing become provocative, right? Is we simply then start adding folds and creases on this flat shape, right? Because we observe, we indicate that something is coming underneath it, right? Right? Just like that, right? So that's how you create the illusion of dimension, then more folds, and as if this thing is very tight, right? So even when you're not doing something with circular layered jackets, you're doing tight stuff, you just got to kind of understand the drapery patterns that exist in order for those things to suddenly not look flat, right? That's why I like anime drawing very much. When people don't understand, when I call a spade, I'm teaching people how to animate at the highest level. Anime is not that. It's very simple, it's very efficient and cost effective, and it looks great. But it isn't great animation. So people think I hate on anime. I don't hate on anime. I actually love the economy of design, and I love the draftsmanship and the drawing. But when you're talking about the stuff that we're doing in this, what this is going to become when it moves, this is going to like exploit the laws and movements of animation in a way that anime never will. You know, just a whizzing camera and a few fast frames is not really great animation. It's trick of the eye, right? So that doesn't mean I hate anime. I love the drawings. The drawings are just so appealing because they're unashamedly drawing. They're giving you flat 2D faces, but they look so darn appealing, and then they're dressing them with these, you know, complex hairdos and drape and clothing and drapery with the light. So hopefully that helped you out, Octavio. Mr. Leon says, what does he say? thank you. I enjoy the transformation from lines into shapes, and then it is the great one. I'm currently animating a whole crowd of people running one character at a time. I hope you planned how they were going to look as a mass of people before. Mute. It happens so fast like magic. That indeed it does. And that's only because I love my work and I have confidence in it, right? And you know, so hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Start to do that too, and it'll happen to you. Charlene Giles, how are you? We've got to do the Skeletor for Charlene. I haven't been doing it for a while, and everybody's been doing it. Charlene, there we go. Everybody giving Octavio some props. Octavio gave the name of the animation studio he's working for. I'm working in a studio called Kinema Citrus. Kinema Citrus. I haven't heard of them. Let's type that up. Let's see what that is. Kinema Citrus Anime. It's Wikipedia. Okay. Kinema Citrus Co. Limited is a Japanese, founded on March 3rd, 2008, former Production IG and Bones members based in Suginami, Tokyo. Its business directors are such and such. What have they made? Notable works include Tokyo Magnitude, Hack Quantum, a 3-episode OVA series, Black Bullet, Barakamon, Made in Abyss, and The Rising of the Shield Hero in 2019. Now, I don't know any of those, but maybe some of you anime fan people do, and it's my pleasure to have helped Octavio via the Real Animator Trainings Library get into that position. So before, I used to say it's not about getting people jobs in the industry, it's about making people better than the industry. Like, it's about, like, it's not like, for example, I would say I attract people from the industry who want to become better rather than get people jobs in the industry, because hand-drawn animation is scarce and we all know that. But here we have somebody who has been through Real Animator Training Library that's enjoying working for that, what is it called again? Kinema Citrus Studio. It's awesome. Right. Many times I spent so much time on one pose when I'm working, like hours in a single drawing, and I like seeing the goalpost in you. Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Leon. I'm here to set the example, and that's it. I'm here to set the example that you can do it too. 3 AMB live streams in less than 5 days, all featuring the great one. Yeah, and Charlene, this one is just for all of my YouTube people. So this one is not a library stream, because we've talked about this kind of stuff in the library. You know, we have 15-part videos teaching you consistency and doing a whole full human turnaround. So this is a freebie for all of you amazing people like Mute Midori. Who else is not a library member? They're all library members on stream. Sneak, perhaps. I don't know. Some of you have code names. So we've got one non-library member in the current chat, but so I'm going to say this is for Mute Midori and Matthew Coe. Okay, Matthew Coe. This is for the non-library people to enjoy on YouTube. It's the anime version of AMB. No, it isn't, Mute Midori. You've designed that. You have officially designed the anime version of AMB. I've seen it every now and then, you know, long time ago. You updated it in your Twitter. You tricked him into drawing himself as an anime character. Must make a shirt with the hashtag, yes. Wow, I see. Thank you so much for the explanation, AMB. My pleasure. Octavio, the same way you learned how to do bones in the anatomy archive, apply that method to drapery and clothing, okay, and you'll be okay, right? Apply the same method that you learned bones, apply that to drapery. Do micro and macro study with drapery, okay, in your spare time from photographs and things like that. He is whoever he feels like. That's right. I like him. Here we go. Have you seen Tokyo Godfathers? No, I haven't. It sounds interesting, though. Yeah, I can confirm. Thank you, AMB. How long does it take you to work on a single commercial? Well, a commercial was often made by many people. Okay, let me answer this to Matthew Cole. So when I haven't, I could technically start opening Real Animator Studios to be taking commissions from professional outfits, because all I have to do is show them Little Red, show them my Tailspin thing, whatever, and we've got, top grade Hollywood services. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste my time doing other people's works. Real Animator Studios is always for my own doing now. But when I worked on a commercial in other studios, what we'd have is we'd have the director, right? We'd have the art director, right? We'd have the production design, which was handed to us by the agency. So the agency gives us these things. We'd then have the storyboard artist. We then have the layout artist, right? Not to mention the editors and all that, but this is what we call pre-production, right? So all of these guys would get together and they would spend anywhere from a month to 2 months, depending on the time they're given, or even, it could be super quick, could be a week, could be anywhere from a week to 6 months, okay, planning this, right? Then they're going to give, because you're forgetting commercials sometimes cost more per second than TV shows. Like they used to get shown at the cinema. Things have changed a little bit different, but back when I used to work, commercials used to cost more than feature films sometimes per second, right? So you're thinking, well, why would you take 6 months to plan 30 seconds? Well, where's the money going, right? Then it would be very quick. Once all this is done, it would then be, the editor is involved because he would edit the animatic, right? So the animator comes in here, right? And there could be like a team of 6, a team of 3, Then there would be the in-betweeners, or we'll call them the assistants. In the UK, we just had assistants that would do cleanup and in-between, right? Which is why it was always a bit wishy-washy, because you're either good at cleanup or you're either good at in-betweening, So that's why Disney feature took it even further by having separate divisions. But let's just say you had the animators and the assistants to keep it simple. So maybe 3 animators and maybe 6 assistants. So because they got to clean it up and in-between it and get through the work. Or maybe even 8, depending on the budget. Or possibly, minimum would be 4. So 4 to 8 assistants. You always want more assistants than animators, because the animators keep pumping them out. But I guess you could have it 3 to 3 as well, thinking about it from a production pipeline. How complex is the commercial? Sometimes you'd split a scene. So I once worked on a commercial where 2 assistants were doing my one scene to get it through faster, right? So that's why you want more assistants, right? Then you would have the post-production people. So you'd have the colorers, post-production. So this is production. And also then you'd have also the ink and paint. Okay, ink and paint. The background artists. So here's where I'm going with these questions that people ask me online, right? How long does it take to animate an entire commercial? Well, Matthew, I honestly can't give you a straight answer, because when you start to do things like a big commercial professionally, it could take months, weeks, all right, depending on how many people you have and if you're going to do it professionally. If you're going to ask me as a one-man band, how long would it take me to do a 30-second commercial? I knocked out 30 seconds of that tailspin animation at super high level in a couple of, maybe about 3 months on and off, right? So, but it doesn't have to be that super high level of animation, right? Like, it could just be a simple, straightforward anime talking mouths and one quick dramatic movement, but then the rest of it is all about the art direction, the painting, the lighting, the shadows, and it all looking cinematic, so you could knock that out in maybe 3 weeks or something like that. So it all depends. Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of an industry mindset as to why those questions can't really be answered so simply. Octavio is currently working on a 3rd season of a show called Shield Hero. Awesome. There we go. That's so nice. And I knew him when he was just a little strapling, starting up with his training library exercises, getting frustrated, how he couldn't make the flour sack work. And there he is. Awesome. Furries would love the Great One. I'm glad. He needs as many fans as he can get. I have updated the AMB character again. What name would you give him, though? That's for you to give him. I'm not getting involved, Mute Midori. I like to see how I'm absolutely honored, flattered, and slightly chuffed that somebody's making a character design based on me. So if I had a say in it, then I think that would take away the what I think is to be the specialness of it. So I'm actually really grateful and really happy that somebody's making a character design based on me. So no, I'm gonna leave that well alone and just enjoy it when I see it. Awesome idea. I will do that. Do on the nose. This has been great. Thank you, AMB. Great example, Octavio. Mr. Leon has gone. What a beautiful story. Good morning, Mirza Bhai. Good morning, Joseph Emmanuel. Good to see you. And Joseph Emmanuel, you have joined me when the stream is coming to an end, but don't worry, this stream is especially for you guys. It is staying on YouTube. I haven't been doing the actual tutorial. I've just shared with you. Asked the question. This is actually based on your question, Joseph Emmanuel. This is based on your question, how to keep proportion. So the whole stream, we did this drawing here based on keeping proportion. So hopefully this is gonna help you. So to any of you guys in the chat who aren't Real Animator Training and who tune in, if you ask enough, I will make a free video for you on YouTube sharing my knowledge in those areas. The only one thing which I will never do, no matter how you ask, is talk about software and how to use software, because it is nothing to do with animation, and my channel is all about animation and how to be a great animator, not how to play with your tool. Okay, that's not what Real Animator Training is about. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me. I'm now going to continue doing this off stream. I'm absolutely loving this. I'm excited about the possibilities of where this is going, and I'm just going to enjoy my life now. And I'm still enjoying my life talking to you guys. So isn't it great, just to be living life to the fullest and realizing your true potential as you're doing so. So again, I'm talking about myself, but there's no reason why that can't be you. Okay, so every time I talk about myself in that way, it's just again to say, well, why not you? Okay, if me, why not you? Right? I'm not here to say only me. I'm here to say I can do it, you can do it, and the only person that says otherwise is the little voice in your heart. So just change that person's opinion, all right, and let the magic happen. Okay, see you later, people. Thanks for joining me. Remember, keep it real. Bye-bye.